Turn it over.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you. And thank you for the invitation, Lloyd and Stephanie. I'm so happy to be here. In my writing, and I have to admit, I have to do a couple disclaimers this morning. Jesus always is guiding me to share the love of God. And usually that's in the form of writing. I've been writing on Facebook 12 or 13 years now. And how that comes to be is I do what I call a meditative writing with Jesus. And it's a combination of form and content where Jesus gives me the content. It's just like thoughts I don't think. It's not like an audible voice, but thoughts just come flowing through me without any effort on my part. And it comes out in a form that shows up as me, So I do a lot of writing, but it's there's no labor or work involved in it. And I just view it as always being to teach me, to remind me of my truth. And out of that comes my passion and desire to share that love that was given me. So it's a natural continuation of the giving receiving process being one. And it brings me so much joy to be here and to share the love of God. And the experience is like an explosion of love within my heart, within my chest here. I can just physically feel that energy springing up. So you all add to my joy by inviting me to be here. So thank you very much. And the other, another thing is that I do no preparation for any of this. So I have no idea of what I'm going to share, how I'm going to share it. I know the theme is maintaining and achieving inner peace, a sustained inner peace. I think that's what all of us want fundamentally, So I'm going to hear it with you as it comes out. The other thing I want to mention is and this is a little ego vanity thing. I'm in the process of having a lot of dental work done. So any horrible sights you see, just perceive me as a spirit. Don't perceive me as a body, and you'll be just fine. I assure you.
Beautiful.
If I can look at myself in the mirror, anybody can. So, but alrighty. Okay, just a moment of bringing myself back to this present, beautiful, holy instant. Um, okay, what's being shown to me is to begin at the beginning, and that is identifying the self that I am in oneness with you guys, and how I'm directed to do that is to remember and recognize that I am a thought in the mind of God. I am we all are his most brilliant idea. But as a thought in the mind of God, I can't have any thoughts other than the thoughts I think with God. It isn't like he gave me this separate little brain. My the thoughts that flow into my mind are of God. And it's an impossible notion that I could think apart from God because I'm one with him, I'm one with you. We're all a thought in the mind of God. We are all his creation. So the idea of a separate ego identity that thinks on its own, can you experience the impossibility of that notion? It's just not possible for me to be separate from the mind of God or think any thoughts that are separate from his mind. I am always a thought in the mind of God. And that's where I function from. That's what I'm one with in my experience in the sojourn called walking in a body in a place called space and time. So that's who I am showing up as today. And so when I think of peace, I think of harmony. I think of who I am being in harmony with what I am, you know. And the only time that conflict or worry or a problem would show up is if I'm in disharmony. And disharmony always comes as an idea that I'm separate from God, that I am apart from Him. I am an entity that exists in a space and time apart from God. And that can be upsetting. That can be upsetting. You know, when I want to, if I find myself in an upset, regardless of what the story is, my practice is always to become still, not just in not moving my body, but stillness of mind. It's like a transfer from a doing or thinking mode to a being mode, just being. And how I accomplish that is bringing my full awareness, my full focus, my full attention to this present moment. Because, you know, here's the thing, when my full focus, attention, and awareness is here right now with you, I'm not thinking. So the challenge of, or the question of, how do I stop my monkey mind from all of its chatter is really only by when I bring my mind back to the present moment and rest in God. The thinking mind naturally will quiet itself. I don't have to do anything but be aware that I'm present with God and have all my focus there. Because I found, and to everything I share here, it comes from my experience of practicing this work for over 40 years now. So it comes from my experience. So that might be different, excuse me, from your experience. And I might use word symbols that don't match up with your experience. So just put all of that aside, because the only things that'll stick with you are things that resonate with the truth in you. Okay, so no worries about that. You don't have to judge yourself or judge me about that. It's just something we just look beyond, you know. So anyhow, if I when I bring my focus and attention to the present moment, I close my eyes and I just be still. And as I'm being still here, I just notice what I'm aware of. You know, I when I close my eyes, I may be aware of the pressure points of my body on the chair. I may be aware of sounds in the other room or sounds from outside the window. It's just pure awareness. That awareness tells me or informs me that I exist. And I notice that nothing else is added to that. There's no judgments about what I'm aware of. I'm just awareness. I'm the one that's aware of being aware. And if I wasn't aware, how would I ever know that I exist at all? So this is the place, this is that empty place and still place. Excuse me, just a minute. This is that empty, still place that God wants to join me. And you see, when my focus and attention is here now with you guys, it's not thinking, it's not debating, it's not fighting or struggling, it's not doing anything. It's not engaging the ego thought system or the imagined ego thought system. So when I'm not feeding this imaginary ego thought system, I'm not strengthening it. In fact, I'm starving it. And it naturally fades away. Because in this present awareness, it's like I stand still as time passes by me. And I write a lot about thoughts come, thoughts go. That's what thoughts do. Feelings come, feelings go. That's what feelings do. And if I don't grab hold of one, they'll pass right out and disappear. Um, and that's the gist of it. Uh, if I allow them to pass, I stay in peace. If I grab hold of it, engage in it, think about it, give meaning to it, I'm strengthening it. And I can strengthen it to the point where I actually believe it's true. And I can become attached to it. And this is especially apparent with physical pain. Pain, physical or emotional, becomes just a misperception. And I don't have an investment in it unless I give it that meaning, give it so much meaning that it's like it's cemented to my mind and I can't let go of it. And if I could, I would. And that's why we have Holy Spirit. God knows our beliefs are very strong. They're very much, we own them as our own. In fact, all of our perceptions, to be helpful, is to own them, is to take responsibility for them. I'm responsible for everything I perceive without exception. So, and unless I take ownership and responsibility, how can I heal them? How can I heal something or ask for healing about something that I don't own or I don't possess? So responsibility for sight becomes a very important component in my staying in a peaceful state. Because once I recognize something that is in disharmony with the truth of myself, the truth of myself is that I'm a pure, perfect, loving, lovable, peaceful child of God. So when that's out of sync, I'll feel it. And I'll know something's amiss in my mind. And whether it's regarding my body or another person or a situation, the source of it, and I should say the source of my experience of it, is in my mind. And that's where healing is accomplished, at the cause, not the effect. So often we're tempted by the ego to place our focus and attention on the effects of an unhealed mind. When I perceive something, believe it's real, and it shows up somehow in my experience in form or thought or feeling, I have to stand back and just look at it instead of engaging it. Because like I mentioned, the more I engage it, the more I try to fix it. Because it's kind of silly when you think of how can the mind that created this mess, believes in this mess, how is that my same mind going to repair it? The one question I can ask about all perceptions, and usually is the only question I ask anymore these days, is what is the truth of this? Whatever this happens to be. What is the truth of this? I can at least stand back and do that. And the good and the wonderful thing about that question is it's a question that ego can't answer. So I know my answer will be of God, will be of spirit. Because if the ego doesn't know what the truth is, and I doubt even if it did, it'd be willing to share it with me, because that ultimately would lead to its demise. So it's mum on the subject. So I direct my questions towards truth to receive an answer from truth. And that's what healing is for me. That's what, a miracle is and forgiveness is. It's that action where love recognizes love and remembers itself. That's all a holy instant is. It's when I bring whatever's going on to me with me in the spirit of love, bring it to love. And then anything unlike love naturally disappears from my awareness. It will be healed. Now there's a little, it gets a little tricky here in time and space, because I know that the moment I ask for healing, it's accomplished. The instant I ask for it. But because I seem to reside in time and space, the answer may seem to unfold within time and space. And what this means is, if I have this physical condition called spinal stenosis, and at times it can be very painful, agonizingly painful, come to think of it. And so, but I've never not been healed of it, every time. And I go through this process of getting still, asking for the healing, asking for the truth of it. Because how could it be possible for a son of God to suffer from anything? I may be in pain, but suffering is a choice. I can choose to be, sometimes I can be in a lot of pain, but still I can rest in the peace of God, because I haven't made it my decision to suffer. To make the decision to suffer is to choose the pain instead of peace in God. It's a simple choice. So what that means is, instead of having that instantaneous experience of healing, which I know occurred, it may play out. I may not receive a diminishing of my pain till that evening, or possibly the next morning. But it always comes. It always comes, because I've chosen the truth over an appearance. I've let go of that belief. So we don't touch these wounds. We bring them to Holy Spirit. It's the process is like, I let it be, I let it flow, and I let it go. And I don't even have to do the last one, because it actually lets go of me. When I'm resting in the peace of God, there can't be anything other than the peace of God there, or otherwise I wouldn't be resting in the peace of God. So when I choose the solution rather than engaging the problem, and we're conditioned to do this from birth, we're conditioned to notice a problem, then go out there and try to fix it. So it's very alien to our conditioning of in life. It's a total flip from how the ego thought system would approach the problem. Jesus once told me that, and I should clarify that when I say Jesus, all I'm talking about is my right mind, my higher self, that connection, that communication link that's still in touch with God, that's still is awakened to the truth. So whether I call it Holy Spirit, my higher self, Jesus, I'm talking about that part of me that's in me. It's not something separate from me, because we all share that same mind. We all have access to the infinite mind of God. Isn't that amazing? It's like the super Google of the universe. I could ask it anything. Um, so that's always comforting to remember. And also, in mid-sentence, I can lose my train of thought. Often that happens to me, so that's good to acknowledge as well. So anyway, I think I was speaking of when I let it be, when I let it flow, when I let it go, it actually lets go of me. As long as I don't interfere, as long as I stay out of the way, and allow God to do its thing, to heal me. I know it. I was going to share a message that Jesus gave me once, and he said, you do not need to know the answer in order for a problem to be solved. And, that was such a aha moment for me, because here's, the truth of it is, the ego thought system, the thinking mind, its only source of reference, its only source of any information is in the past. That's the only place the thinking mind has to go for information. So what happens is when the mind goes to the past looking for an answer or similar experience that provides an answer and doesn't find one, well, what happens is we can believe an answer doesn't exist and a state of hopelessness can set in. We can think, well, there is no answer to that. But right outside of this imaginary thought system called the ego, we have the infinite mind of God that knows everything. I'm sorry, I'm getting little beeps of messages that I'll get to a little later. So we have the access to the infinite mind of God. What we need to unveil is the portal to this access. And it's interesting that my portal to infinite knowledge lies in the recognition and the remembrances of I don't know what anything means. I don't have any clue, but there is one who is. Once I found myself asking Jesus that question we all ask him when a situation shows up. And the question was, what am I going to do? And Jesus responded by saying, you're asking the wrong question. Ask instead, what is God going to do? And I'm telling you, the first time that happened, it was like the weight of the world was off my shoulders because I realized it wasn't up to me to solve a problem that I created myself or made up myself. I needed something outside of that thought system. Was it Einstein that said the mind that you can't create, the mind that created the problem can't create its solution. So I have to step aside. It's always this getting out of the way that serves me the best. It's my total dependence and trust in God. And I've learned also that trust is an acquired skill. We learn to trust by trusting. There's just no other way. I like to use the analogy of learning to ride a two-wheel bike. You'll get on, you'll fall off. You'll get on, you'll fall off. But in all those attempts, each time you get a little bit more secure in the knowledge that the bike will hold me up. And then one day you're off and running and you don't give it a thought anymore. It's just like an automatic process. And that's basically how mind training teaches us. It's in the beginning, and I'm sure many of you have had the same experience. To gauge or to assess, I should say, my spiritual progress, all I have to do is look back. And in the beginning, I didn't know there was anything outside of an ego thought system. I didn't know there was another choice. That was who I was. And then as I did the lessons and followed the teachings of Jesus, I learned that I had a choice, that I could choose the ego system or I could trust in God. And trust is like, that little baby bird on the limb and its mother saying, go ahead, jump off, you can fly. And the little baby bird's probably thinking, sure, Mom, sure, But at some point, we do get up the courage to jump off the branch. And then that choice, we're back to a place of no choice, or we're forward, because now we see the obvious choice is trusting God. Why? Every time I trust God, and I can't think of one exception to this, every time I trust God, I'm given validation of that trust. I'm shown that that was the right decision to do in my experience. Either one or two things happen. If I'm asking a question, sometimes the question shows up as meaningless. It was so meaningful just a minute ago, and now I see it has no purpose, so it dissolves. Or a solution shows up in an unimagined way. And I say unimagined because the solution had nothing to do with the past. So it's not any solution that I would have ever conjured up with the ego thought system. It came from outside of it. It came from that infinite mind of God. So through my trusting and through the validation of that trust, trusting becomes the obvious choice in any situation, in any mental battle I'm experiencing. Because I don't know what about you, but once in a while I'll catch myself in mid thought and say, "Oh no, 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 not this time, ego. You're not going to sneak up on me this time." But most often, I I discover I'm in ego through the evidence that's shown to me. I find myself, or I recognize I'm sitting in a pile of fear. The thought's already happened. I've already done the deed, and now I'm sitting in its effects. That's where, and I often say, I'm so happy Jesus gives us that choose once again option, because I don't know about you, but I'd be screwed without it, because so much of our original choice is made at a level of unconsciousness. We're just so conditioned, it's like automatic, and you just find yourself there. Your mind is like, and then you have that beautiful healing. You have that beautiful release from being a hostage of the ego. And it's, I swear, it's like waking up from a drunken binge. It's like, what was I thinking? How could I have allowed myself to believe in such foolishness? How could ego could have, how could it have convinced me again to believe in something that's just not possible in the realm of heaven, in the realm of truth, in my relationship with God, because in the oneness of everything, and that's another thing we could talk about all day, the glorious oneness of God, that unity and joining, which also contributes to my peace. Right before I came on here, I was in my daily morning call, a conference call, where we read a portion of the text and we do the lesson together. It's about 20 of us, 17, 20, something like that. And I'm telling you, the more you share the love of God, the more that spiritual energy just grows in you. And no matter where my mind seemed to be when I entered the call, by the time it's over, I'm just flying. I am just flying with the angels, because it just feeds me. Just like fear feeds the ego and thinking feeds the ego, acknowledging the truth and sharing that truth feeds my spirit. It's like spiritual food, and that's my whole purpose in sharing what my writings on Facebook, because I get the goodies in the morning and then I share them and they are strengthened within me. And then when I see that something I wrote resonates with someone or it's helpful for someone, oh my God, it's the best feeling in the world, because even though I may share with thousands of people, if just one tells me that it mattered to them and it helped them, that's all we're here for. I find I have two purposes: one, forgiveness, and the other, sharing the love of God. There's nothing else spiritually to do here. We share our love with our brothers in whatever way shows up, and that's made known to us. Saint Augustine had a beautiful quote, and I, in the rules for my Facebook group, Sharing the Love of God, it's the only rule I have for the group. And the quote is, love and do what you want. Because when you're coming from a place of love, whatever you do will have a loving, holy purpose. It just has to. So you don't have to get into the specifics of do this, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. Just love. This is about sharing the love of God in whatever way you want to. Doesn't have to be a Course in Miracles. If you have an experience of the love of God, this is the place to share it. This is the place of extending it and strengthening it and joining with your brothers. Because in the joining, it's Jesus tells us that miracles are shared between brothers, That's all we do here is share miracles. Every thought, every loving thought that I extend to a brother, a miracle happens. Even a smile. I love to be, if I'm in a convenience store and the cashier looks kind of down or grouchy or just not happy, I'll just flash him a big smile. And the miracle happens when that smile, that love that was contained within the smile is received and they smile back at me. That's where giving and receiving are complete. For one holy instant, we both remembered God, and a healing will occur. So when Jesus says that our brothers are our saviors, it's a giving and receiving process. I heal them by healing myself. I heal myself in extending healing to them because we are one of one mind. It's a much more comfortable relationship of giving and receiving love than having two egos playing ping pong at one another and no communication happening at all. Because the only true communication, the only remedy for anything is, I find, is love. Love is the remedy. Jesus says, love is the remedy for anything appearing unlike itself. When I bring anything to love, and I bring it all to love, I embrace it with love, the good, the bad, the ridiculous. It all is embraced with love. If I'm angry at a brother, I embrace him with love. I bring my awareness of him to love. Not because it's good or bad or righteous, but because it works, because love heals. So when I free my brother, I'm freeing myself. And I know most of you guys all know all this stuff, but I'm just sharing, what works for me in the hope that something I say or I've said might spark an instant of recognition within your own holy mind. And you might try it out. I always say I love A Course in Miracles when I first discovered it because being raised Catholic, Jesus was telling me, you don't have to believe any of this stuff. In fact, the atonement is about undoing your beliefs. So there's a space for light and truth to show up in your mind. But he did encourage me to take these spiritual concepts out for a test drive and just see what shows up. Don't anticipate it. Don't try to define what you want to show up. Just apply this principle to your life and see what shows up. And then you don't need the belief. The whole idea of belief becomes obsolete because you'll have this inner knowing of its truth. It'll be real to you. So instead of making all this garbage up with the ego that's unreal and having that rule your life and guide you, just come to the my first experience was, I guess you could call it a miracle. And in fact, it was right before I found A Course in Miracles. I was reading a book by Hugh Prather. You might be familiar with him. He was an early writer on A Course in Miracle. Him and Jerry Jampowski were two people that really led me to A Course in Miracles. And anyway, one of Hugh's books was called A Book of Games, and it was spiritual play based on the workbook lessons, but he had a really lighthearted way of doing it. And the one game that I tried was to give everybody permission to be what they are. For one day, give everyone permission to be who they are. Give the weather permission to be what it wants to give the traffic permission to be, heavy or backed up. Give my boss permission that for this day, he can be a grouch. He can be unreasonable. Give my partner, and the same thing with my children or my partner, for one day, just give everybody permission to be what they are. And at the end of the day, report your results. Well, two things happened. The one thing obviously was that it was the most peaceful day I could remember ever happening. And the other thing, which was an amazing, it may seem elementary to a lot of you now, but for me at that time in the beginning, it was an amazing discovery that I could take control of my mind and I could affect my experience of a day. I could affect how I responded to situations in my life. I didn't have to be ruled by them, but I could recognize, as Jesus says in A Course in Miracles, that I have a kingdom that I must rule. And that kingdom is my mind, the mind I share with you and God. And when I'm in the driver's seat with God and Jesus and all my buddies, my spiritual buddies, I'm not at the effect of the world I see. I'm no longer a victim. And that's again coming back to responsibility for sight. It's a very powerful place to own your perceptions, because I can just, and it's not a thing about blame or shame. And I hear so many course students lament about, I still experience pain and fear. Well, as long as you walk around in this body, there's healing to be done. As long as I perceive myself as a body, there's healing to be done. So things are going to show up. And what I found to be more important is not, convincing myself that the world's not real or this body is not real. What's most helpful for me is looking at my relationship I have with the world, looking at the relationship I have with my body, look at the relationship I have with my brothers, because that's where the holiness is found. That's where I discover that God is in everything I see. And if that relationship, if I'm right with God, if my relationship with God is holy, then everything is holy. All my relationships are holy. If my perception of the world is holy, then everything shows up as lovely and lovable. It's not anything that's what I love about healing. That I see or notice. But after the healing, it's like everything shows up that way. Everything shows up as healed, whole, and lovely. It's so generalized because it's one. It's one of the freebies or the benefits of this oneness. It's all inclusive. It leaves nothing or no one out. Um, and so that's where I like to dwell. That's where I find it. My peace. The other thing you notice when when you're trying to evaluate your progress, this is how it unfolded for me. In the beginning, most of the time, I would find myself in a state of discomfort, and that discomfort could be attached to 1,000 things, each taking a little bite out of my peace. So for the most part, I saw myself not at peace. And once in a while, I would stumble upon peace and just be so happy. And then as I progressed, I saw that the intervals of peace grew wider and longer in a linear fashion. And the intervals of fear became less, shorter, and less often. And then now, if I describe my life, which I must admit is a very simple life, but it's a very happy life and a very peaceful life. It is it's just occasionally I'll stumble over a situation that jars me for a moment. But see, what's important is what is my response to that? That's so important. Situations, feelings, thoughts will always rise up to tempt me, but my peace is found in my response. Jesus tells us that there's only two emotions, love and fear. So my thoughts and my feelings just reflect to me how I responded to that thought or that emotion. Um, did I respond to it with love or did I respond to it with fear? because that will, my experience will tell me. And if I responded to it with fear, it's just back to choose again. I can heal at this instant. I don't have to stay there. And what a glorious discovery that is, that I don't have to stay in my misery, that I can heal it immediately as soon as I notice it. And you notice it faster and faster, because when you sustain peace, not being in peace is, like the pebble in your shoe. You just can't have it. You have to take your shoe off and get rid of the pebble. And it's the same thing with not being in a peaceful state. It becomes so alien. Not being in peace becomes such an alien experience, is that you want to heal it right away. Even anger, which I found to be one of the most challenging things to heal over the years, because anger, you want to justify that. You feel justified in being angry. You feel right about it. And when you feel right about it and justified, it's a little more difficult to let it go. You want to, just kind of bask in it for a little bit. Well, I'm not ready to stop being angry with you. So, but again, peace always wins out. I remember one time I had a broken heart. Oh my God, I was in such misery. And I would just pray for a different outcome, change the situation. And of course, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, they were trying to make me aware of the holiness of the relationship. And here, I was there trying to reinforce and strengthen the specialness of it. Well, I reached this point where the pain was so great, I just, got on my knees and said, Lord, I don't care what the result is. I just want peace. I don't care if he's in or out of my life. I just want peace. You decide. Thy will be done. Just bring me peace. It was like, peace always, the desire for peace always wins out within me. And I think Jesus tells us somewhere in the Course that that's where I will see myself and my brothers, because it's the one thing we all want. We all want peace. We all want love, the giving and receiving of both. And we have that power. Peace, Jesus will tell me. And if I start running over time, Stephanie, just kind of, or Lloyd, just butt in and tell me to shut up, okay? But Jesus tells me whenever I'm faced with a decision, do what brings you peace. In that moment, whatever that moment is, just do what brings you peace. Perhaps one of my passions in life is painting, and it's a spiritual practice for me because it becomes like a meditation. So in a moment, when I'm trying to decide between this and that, I'll ask myself, in this moment, what will bring you peace? It might be cooking. It might be calling someone. It might be reading. It might be writing. It might be painting. In that moment, I do the next best thing. And the next best thing is always what brings me peace. And that never fails me. I never get into that conversation in my mind about, oh, I should be doing this. I remember I used to have that war with myself when I was raising my daughter, because my husband, he transitioned when she was 7 years old. So whenever I was at work, I was guilty about not being home with her. And then when I was home with her, I was guilty about not being at work and doing my job. It was awful. It was awful. It kept me in a state of guilt most of the time. But now when I choose to do what brings me peace in the moment, my mind's aligned with God, and I'm doing the will of God, because God's will for me is peace and happiness. So I find that a peaceful mind is a very powerful mind, capable of just amazing things. There was a time in my life, I guess 10, 15 years ago, my daughter was addicted to heroin. And for any of you that have children, I find that our relationships with our children are more special than any relationship we can have. You know, it's like they were once a part of us. I mean, I feel my daughter's feelings before she even shows up or I talk to her on the phone. So when she was going through this nightmare, I remember praying and saying, I would pray for her to be arrested because she was on the streets and it was winter time. And I figured, well, if she was arrested, at least she'd have a roof over her head and food and be warm, you know. And I was praying for God to help me, to guide me in knowing what to do. And of course, his response to me, which is obvious to me now, but at that time, I hadn't given my daughter over to God. I still owned her. And I still felt like, you know, God, you can have anything. I surrender everything to you, but not my daughter. Not my daughter. I still wanted to have my fingers in the pot. And Jesus was so kind to me that night. He said, the only thing you can do for your daughter is to love her. But that's the most powerful thing you can do. Give her love, give her peace. He was reminding me that I could be the peace that she wanted, that she desired. I could be the love that she desired. So from that point on, every time she showed up, and it didn't matter whether she was in a rage at me or something else, I would just maintain a state of peace because I knew that's what was going to heal her and it was going to heal me and that we were going to heal together. And the only way that we could heal together is for one of us to keep our sanity, for one of us to show up in their right mind. And so it was amazing to witness. And I witness it a lot too on the calls I have with students that I mentor, in that when I'm at peace, wherever they are and upset, as I extend that peace to them, and they may pick it up within my voice or just my energy, but they become peaceful. They calm down. And it is truly a pure experience of like giving and receiving, being one. As I extend the peace of God, we both feel the peace of God. As I extend the love of God and share the love of God, we both experience the love of God. So it's something I come back to and use. It's a mighty tool and a motivation, because Jesus tells us that the motivation for even doing A Course in Miracles is inner peace, because it's such a powerful place to reside at the level of mind. Do what brings you peace, is his advice. You know, you don't have to be guilty. You don't have to judge anything. You don't have to, like, even my feelings. I used to feel, I thought I was failing when a feeling would come up that wasn't joy and happiness. And it had nothing to do with that. I allow myself to be what I'm being, and I offer no resistance. I allow fear just to wash over me. Because as soon as I offer resistance, it's like saying, you're real. You're real. Because how could I offer resistance to something that truly didn't exist? So if I'm offering it resistance, I'm giving it a false reality. I'm making it real. I'm strengthening it. And whether it's physical or emotional pain, I just let it be and it dissolves. You know, and there's I'm sure you're familiar with the quote. I don't know, I haven't memorized it, but where Jesus says, forgiveness quietly does nothing. It looks, and I don't know the rest of it, but you know the idea behind it. It doesn't try to adjust reality in any way. It doesn't acknowledge what's not real to be real. It doesn't mean you're not compassionate about these things. And you're always able to offer it love. And that's the wisest thing to do anyway, because love is healing. Love is the most powerful force in the universe. It created the universe. We're love. I often say you can't define love because love is what defines me. Love defines me. I don't define love, you know. And when I latch on to love and the power of love and the peace that it brings, I'm in a state where I recognize nothing is impossible where God is concerned. Anything is possible. I just have to trust. And trust, like I mentioned before, it's an acquired skill. It's like learning the bike, ride a bike, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes to trust the next time. So I think it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think, is anything
Yeah,
helpful?
Lana, this is absolutely beautiful. I'm
Oh,
just wondering now, thank you so much. I can't even say enough. I just got so many little.
Oh, yes, she can.
I can. I got so many just different gems and ahas and just absolutely beautiful. But what I'd like to do now, if it's okay with you, just invite a couple of questions. Are you okay with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We
Let's
want
see
to
what
take,
shows up.
do we want to take a 5-minute break? Just so
I
that
Yeah,
just,
that would be
I
nice.
just want to
That,
say,
that would be nice. Yeah.
I just want to say quickly that, what you said about the trust thing is so important.
Yeah.
We have to trust in order to experience that trust.
Yeah.
That's up to us completely.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where you take out for a test drive and you see what shows up. And I don't know about you, but for me, every time I trusted and I knew I could trust and feel safe in that trust and secure in that trust. So it made it easier to trust the next time when I needed to trust. So
Yeah,
practice makes progress.
exactly. And it's just like the more you trust, the bigger things get, like the miracles, they get bigger
Yes.
because you're
Yes.
ready to accept them.
Right.
Yeah. Wonderful way to live.
Yeah. The Holy
It
Spirit.
is. It is. Let God worry about it. I'm busy painting. God will take care of it.
Okay, guys, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. Okay, so we'll be back in 5 minutes.
We're not really going anywhere because we're in our car.
We're in our car, but I'm going to run in the washroom. We're right next to the restaurant. So I'll just go in and use the washroom, and we'll be back shortly. I'm going to put the recording on pause, and I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. So we can get our questions lined up. I see we have one question ready already. So
Okay, that'll be great.
Okay,
I'll
darling.
take a nature break too.
Okay, perfect.
All right, we'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Or
Go on here now.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
So are we ready, Lana?
Yeah, I'm ready. I was just going to say that these thoughts we do not think, they're always coming into us and coming through us. But if we're so busy being engaged in thinking that we don't notice them or they pass by us, but they're always constantly are the thoughts we think with God. They're always there. And for me, the experiences, like I might have mentioned, it's like, oh, where does that come from? Because I know I didn't think it, I didn't have anything to do with that thought. And when we really focus on listening and paying attention to these thoughts, which to me is guidance from God, and we follow them, our life becomes, effortless, effortless,
Yeah.
it's like what it says in the course, something about it's like walking down a garden path.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, smelling the flowers. It's so true.
When we learn to decide with God and to think with God.
Yeah.
And I think a big part of that, for me was understanding that your thoughts are not your own. In other words, the ego thoughts are not your thoughts. We sometimes think that they're our thoughts, but the thoughts that the ego is feeding us, they're not our thoughts.
No, Jesus told me once that if you think they are your thoughts, then who's the one listening to them?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
They're just passing through.
Right.
And if I don't latch on to one, it'll just pass right on through.
Yes. And once we understand that, when we can treat those thoughts in that way as, these thoughts are not my own. The thoughts you think, The thoughts you think are not your real thoughts. They're not your thoughts. Sorry. They're coming from the ego.
They're not the thoughts I think with God.
Right.
Because the thoughts I think with God require nothing of me.
Right.
Other than to receive them, acknowledge them, and listen to them.
Right.
Yeah. And the thing, people ask, how do you hear the Holy Spirit? I mean, there's no direct answer for that, because the Holy Spirit can use absolutely anything that we made to communicate. But in most cases, it is inspired thought in spirit. Yeah.
Yes.
You have to just learn to listen to get all that other garbage out of the way so you can hear it.
And I like that Jesus mentions in the Course that your Holy Spirit is nothing more than your right mind.
Yes.
And we have to recognize that the Holy Spirit isn't something separate and apart from our own holy self.
Exactly.
It's just that part of the mind that that's in communication with God, that can convey that guidance to us. It's part of us. It's part of us, as I'm part of the mind of God.
Exactly.
And so it's not an entity that I need to introduce myself to. It's like a dog chasing its own tail, and then he finds it. Yikes, he bites it and he awakens. Jesus says awakening doesn't have to be painful, but it usually is.
And you return, like when you return to your right self, the Holy Spirit actually disappears. Because it is you.
Yes.
You become the manifestation. Yeah.
Yes. It's a union.
The key
unity.
for me, this whole process, for me, it's been really wanting that more than anything. I want the peace of God, and for that desire to be 100%, I think that all the suffering really is used for the purpose of purifying my mind to the point where I can say, I want the peace of God. And I mean that, 100%. And I even know when that transition happened for me, where it was probably 98%, 99%. And I woke up one morning and the Holy Spirit validated to my mind that I was now wanting the peace 100%.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that I'm not going to have any more ego thoughts, but it means that I would have none that I would keep.
Exactly. Because I call my body, I say I have body adventures, and about 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with a fatal lung disease, pulmonary fibrosis. There's no cure for it. There's no treatment for it other than comfort treatments. And it's a disease where scar tissue just builds up in your lungs until they're not able to function anymore. So, when just real quickly, because I know there's questions there, just real quickly, that healing happened for me when I just came to Jesus and asked him, what am I to do with this? Because, just abandoning, I guess at that point, and that was just such a challenging occurrence that I really needed guidance. And Jesus just I could almost pick up a smile in his tone when he says, you let the doctors take care of your body, but I'll take care of your mind.
Wow.
Exactly.
I love that.
The mind is what's going to heal the body. So let the doctors do whatever they want. If that makes you comfortable, go to the doctors. But the doctors already told me they couldn't do anything. And they were just still scratching their heads when my MRIs showed that the disease was reversing itself.
Wow.
And less scar tissue was showing up. And eventually I was just healed totally. I've had some amazing near-death experiences. I could talk about those for a long time. I'm still walking around though. Not my time to go.
Jesus is using your mind right now in this moment.
Absolutely.
In this way, right? Yeah.
I mean, the Course is geared to healing your mind. That's it.
Right.
To bring it back to peace, because it says peace is the condition of heaven.
Yeah. And health is inner peace.
Health is inner peace.
Yes.
Yeah, we could go on
and all illness is mental illness.
We started talking like this at 6 o'clock in the morning. We're talking out on the deck and we're saying, we need to record these sessions.
We're going to start recording our morning conversations.
All right, you should.
I know.
Coffee with
middle of this
Lloyd and Stephanie.
We're in the middle of this beautiful free flow conversation, over coffee. And every now and then Lloyd or I will say, we got to start recording these conversations.
Yeah, it'll be a gift. They would be a gift.
Yes.
Eli, what's your question?
Yeah.
You're on.
Okay. I have to start by thanking you. Through your whole talk, all I could feel was love. It was beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Almost getting tears just saying that, because the love I could feel coming through was very, very strong. Anyway, my question, how do we find you on Facebook?
Well, I do have a group. It's called Sharing the Love of God. And that's all we do there. We don't argue or debate or discuss. We just share our love of God in whatever way it shows up. You don't have to be a course student. You can, you don't have to be anything, whatever path you've chosen. The purpose is to acknowledge the oneness of us all and our trust and faith in God and how it shows up in our lives, how it manifests the experience. So find me on Facebook. It's Lana Carolan. And I think my last name is spelled Carolan. There's no Y in it.
Okay.
And I should look up. Or look for the group Sharing the Love of God. It has the photograph is just a heavenly picture of the blue sky and clouds with, I think there's a dove in there, but that's the visual ID for it.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, you were speaking of how from a book, and that's what I want, is what book it is. But regardless, you were saying how you had to spend a day just letting everything just be what it is, do what it's doing, the traffic, this, that.
Giving it permission. I think we give it permission, and you can use that idea every day. It's kind of like AA, one day at a time. I can do anything for one day. I can allow, my roommate to be a grumpy person for one day. I can.
Maybe for 5 minutes.
But the thing of it is, it's not even one day. It's this moment. In this moment, we're always in this every moment. We're always deciding whether it's going to be one of peace or conflict. And to choose peace is just to give God permission and give everyone permission to show up exactly as they are. Because exactly as they are is perfect. The only thing that makes it seem imperfect are my misperceptions of it,
And so did you get this from a book to start with?
Yes, there's two books that I would point you to. They're both by Hugh Prather. He just passed away, I think, about a year ago. A beautiful soul. His name is spelled Prather, Hugh Prather. And the books are, The Quiet Answer is a gorgeous little book called The Quiet Answer. And the other one is a book of games. And I can't remember whether that specific game was in A Quiet Answer or a book of games, because they both have spiritual games in them. But he's also a wonderful teacher of A Course in Miracles too.
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, do we have any more questions? Anyone just absolutely just dying to ask a question? They're just they might feel a little anxious and they might not know if they should or could or whatever, but now is the time.
Keith has written one in the chat. Do you have the chat there, Stephanie?
I saw that, and I do believe, Keith, that your answer that you just received that, because I think you were asking about Carolan's, contact information, which we will include in the video as well. Okay, when we post the video on our support, we'll include Carolan's profile, so anybody can reach out to you then.
Yeah, and also I communicate with a lot of my friends on Facebook and my family and friends otherwise in Messenger and Facebook Messenger. So you could contact me that way as well. I may not be there. I may not be at the computer when you send the message, but I'll get back to you as soon as possible, as soon as I can. And I mentor about 5 or 6 students now from all over the world. And I use the Facebook phone for that because it's free and I can call Australia or England. I have one in Russia. And, you know, so that's a means of, Jesus has just provided a means of communicating with such ease. You know, there's not anyone that he would, you know, keep from me or make it, you know, hard to communicate with.
You know, Holy Spirit is just asking me to ask you a question, Lana. It just sort of came into my mind. So I'm just going to ask you, what do you believe is the hardest thing you've ever had to forgive? You know, the most
Well, I shared a little bit about it when I gave my talk, when I was talking about my daughter and and the heroin. The hardest thing, I don't know, I guess you could say I forgave my reluctance to let go of my daughter and trust God. You know, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And it was the last thing I gave to God. You know, he owns every other part of me and my existence. And I truly am, like Lesson 50 says, I'm sustained by the love of God in all ways, my health, my where I live, what I do, you know, he's my food, my sustenance for everything is based on my trust and relying on God. And to give her over to him was really a challenge for me. And it took, you know, her bottoming out was my bottoming out, you know, because you were placed in these situations where it truly is a blessing when you find yourself in a place where the only thing you have to put your trust in is God. All other options have fallen through. The only place to go is God. And it may sound like a desperate situation, but it actually is a blessing, because if that's your first experience with trusting God, it shows you that you can trust him. And it's the first place you go the next time, you know. So that night I had this glorious, mystical, I don't know, experience. And I've never been able to put it in words or the mechanics of how it happened. But Jesus took me to that place I didn't want to go. He took me to this experience of finding my daughter dead from an overdose. You know, and I just didn't want to look at it. I did, but through some miraculous means, and like I said, I can't put words to it, my experience of it, finding her that way, I saw that experience showed me she was perfectly safe, that nothing had happened, that it didn't matter that whether she was in a body or out of body, that her being was perfectly safe. And I mean, when in my humanity, that's an absurd notion for a mother. Of course, I want my daughter in her body. Of course, I don't want her out of my awareness. But spiritually, at the level of spirit, at that moment, it was perfectly sane. It was perfectly reasonable. It was perfectly true, you know? And when that fear left me, because that was probably my greatest healing, was the fear of my daughter doing herself in with drugs. When that was healed, not only did she recover, but our relationship was made holy, you know, because we both depend on God so much. And I came another time, you know, I came close to death through an ailment I had, which required all these surgeries. I had 13 surgeries, abdominal surgeries, over a 6-year period. And the last one, I acquired a staph infection. And I just about left the planet, left the body. And I remember the morning I woke up and a priest was putting oil on my forehead. And I thought, well, this can't be good. This cannot be good. And after he left, I just laid there, and I was just kind of waiting to see what happened next. I don't remember being in any pain, but what happened was a whole transformation with the relationship I had with my body. I recognized with a certainty that my body couldn't save me from anything, that I couldn't depend on my body. And in that instant, it lost all its value to me. It was no longer an idol to be worshiped and depend on. And I was free. And just like the experience with my daughter, I had a peace within me that told me, informed me that it was okay if I stayed and it was okay if I left. Because the truth of who I am didn't matter, didn't need to be in a body or out of a body. And the experience that followed, which was a truly miraculous experience too, was just of utter peace and joy. And it wasn't, and I don't describe it as an out of body experience, but it had more to the truth of it. It had nothing to do with the body. The body was no more important in that experience than the lamp on the table or the tree outside the window.
Right.
It was just another object in my view,
Right.
you know, and I was not a part of it.
Right.
What? Pardon me?
In your
In
projection.
Your projection or your dream.
Yeah, right, right. I saw my projection of my body, and it was no more important than the lamp or the tree outside, you know. So I saw it in, you know, Jesus says something about the insignificance of the body must be recognized or so. And I truly, in that moment, saw the It's not that I don't love my body and take care of my body. I hold it as a host to God, but no more than that, no more than a neutral experience that I have. And I give it the power, either for
simply a learning device.
Exactly, simply a learning and a communication device where it enables me to sit here and have an experience of communication with everyone here. You know, so it's a tool. It's a tool. I'm not its servant. It's my servant.
Yes.
Yeah.
As the Course says, we've never been born and never died.
No, no, you know, birth, you know, our birth creation didn't begin at birth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's like lesson number 1 in A Course in Miracles. If we just got that one, we wouldn't
Yeah.
need.
Exactly. Yeah, if we just got that one.
Means anything.
That one. That's right.
Fortunately,
I give everything the meaning it has.
Unfortunately, it takes 40 years to get that.
Right.
That's what time is for, right?
We're slow learners. I'm glad we still have time.
Yeah, I tell you now, Lana, at this point now, we're going to stop the recording, but we're, you know, continue on. That doesn't mean that everyone got to just, we're going to cut everyone off. If you want to stay, great.
We've done that,
if you don't,
by accident.
Yeah, we did that one time by accident. But what I'd like to invite everyone to do now, when I just finished this with this request, is thank you so much, Lana, first of all, for being here today. But I want to invite everybody to take themselves off mute. And thank you to bring back all the love that you have just, and the sweetness that you have just extended out from yourself, from the mind of God, so that you can feel all that love coming back to you. So I just want to say thank you, Lana.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lana.
Thank you, Lana.
Thank you.
Love to you.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, it's my joy. And I do have a call that I need to make in a few minutes, so I'm going to get off now. But this has been a joy. Thank you so much.